Hi there, my name is David and welcome to Bricks, Blocks and Mocks. Today's video is gonna be a bit different. We're gonna go behind the scenes for the intro montage I created for the Audi RS6 video. And if you haven't checked that video out yet, I really recommend you to do so because the whole video was a pretty good one in my opinion. But yeah, don't forget as always to like and subscribe if you like this. Maybe follow me on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And consider checking out my website as well where I sell instructions for my models. Anyway, before we get into today's video, I just want to say that this is how I usually go about creating these cinematic Lego videos, if you like, with the gear I've been fortunate enough to get my hands on during the years. And a lot of that is thanks to those of you who supported me by purchasing instructions, sets and rims, which I'm just so grateful for. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And also, I'm absolutely not an expert. I'm maybe not a beginner either. But yeah, in the end, I hope I can inspire a bit with this and just have fun with it. But with that being said, let's get into the video now. Alright, so I tend to start with taking some inspiration from actual car commercials and other type of commercials as well. So I will just go onto YouTube and search. I think the new BMW CS commercial was pretty good. Maybe the most important thing is to have some kind of story, I think. And as you probably can see many times in very good commercials, car commercial, all commercials actually, is that I think they have a pretty, it's not all about cool shots of the car. They have some kind of theme, or in best case scenario, a pretty strong story, which I really like. Also like the Supra commercial, which is just so insanely good in my opinion. Just because it's such a fun story, basically. And it still have these very cool cinematic shots. I can really recommend you to check that out because it's really fun and a really cool commercial. But I've already checked out a few commercials, so I'm gonna go to kind of storyboarding everything now. So also ask you on Instagram and YouTube if you had any Lego video related questions. And yeah, you had a few, but you also had only Lego related questions, which made me realize that I should probably do kind of a only Lego Q&A. Should probably have been more clear, but yeah. Anyway, right, first question, any tips for beginners? I would say the best tip is kinda work with what you have. You probably heard this before, but most phones actually have a pretty good camera nowadays. So use that. And the biggest thing in my opinion is learn to work with lighting. It doesn't have to be any studio lights or whatever. Again, work with what you have, and the best light is actually sunlight on a cloudy day. Of course, it depends on what you're going for. For the Bugatti Chiron video, I actually used bike light. So yeah, work with what you have and really learn lighting. And there's tons of tutorials on that here on YouTube. Right, so the idea I came up with is kind of a hacker who's doing some kind of intrusion, and then this hacker needs to be stopped or something, and the story is kind of that the RS6 needs to be built / arriving before the hacker completes his mission. It's a bit of a, I don't know, it feels a bit of a cheesy, corny story, but I think with a bit of editing magic and filming and everything, I think it's gonna go together pretty well. And the plan is kind of to cut rhythmically between the coding, the keyboard tapping, and the Lego bricks, kind of the RS6 getting built, just to emphasize some kind of sophistication or whatever. I don't know how this will look, but I have a pretty good feeling, even if it might sound kind of weird right now. Also start to kind of plan out the scenes, but before we do that actually, we're gonna go and choose some music. Next question, how do you make such cool transitions? I don't know if you had any particular transitions in mind. I guess you mean more seamless transitions as it's called, not hard cuts. And yeah, extremely rarely add transitions in post. Yes, I use some dip transitions and stuff like that. But if I want to have these more seamless transitions, I try to do them in camera. And what do I mean by that? One thing is that you can take use of the motion blur by moving the camera really fast. So when you want to go one shot to another with this method, for this you kind of have to have the camera in movement. But basically when you come to the end of the shot, you move the camera really fast in one direction, up and down or somewhere to the sides. You go in the same direction and drag it quick and slow it down. You can also do this a bit in post with speed ramping. Then thanks to the motion blur, it kind of goes seamless into the next shot. You can also use table edges and stuff like that to have more of a dip transition. Alright, so I went on to Epidemic Sound, which I use for sound effects and music. I think I mentioned that before. And I actually also have an affiliate link in the description if you want to support me that way. But anyway, found kind of a music here that I kind of like. Don't know how much of the first part I'm gonna be using. And also went and downloaded some stock footage from Pixabay, which I can recommend for like free stock footage or whatever. And some sound effects from Epidemic Sound. And just edited it together, something that I kinda like, just to see how the music feels and everything. I quite like that song for this, but I think I'm gonna search a little bit more just in case. Alright, so now moved into DaVinci Resolve and started placing some markers here for where I want the different scenes to happen according to the music I also put in, of course. And yeah, these markers are just to give me a bit of an idea of where I want the different scenes and what to shoot. Alright, so for the first scene we're gonna have the hacker and also add some ambient light. Then we also have this main light up here, and of course it all sits right above me to create a bit of a shadow over the face when I put on this hoodie or whatever. So yeah, that's the plan at least.
This is the emergency broadcast system.
There was also a few questions about which camera I used. I used a Sony A7C. Alright, and now I shot kind of a coding background that I downloaded.
This is not a test.
Alright, so now we're gonna shoot the actual model itself, and I think I'm gonna use mainly this kind of macro lens. And we also have this kind of smoke thing which I've been using before. Keep the surface you're gonna shoot on extremely clean. A really good tip is to use gloves when you're handling these models to prevent finger marks and so on. We still also have this kind of top-down light with the honeycomb grid directed down on the car. Then I also got a few questions from Cole, aka Brick Engineering Dude, which I think most of you have heard about. So, keeping the camera steady, I would say that's one of the hardest things with shooting Lego models or just small things in general, because all these tiny shakes get magnified so much when you shoot really close. So if you can stay away from hand holding the camera or even using a gimbal, then that's the best solution, to be honest. And if you're gonna use a gimbal, have it stationary, and I think most gimbals have a joystick, or in best case scenario you can program them. Of course, that along with sliders is the ambitious solution, but use table edges or cloths or stuff like that to keep the camera steady. And the very fun thing when I want to get a bit of movement and keep it stable is that I use Lego to build sliders and different kind of dollies, as it's called. Great tip is also to use some kind of brush to kind of dust off the model a bit. Also think I'm gonna use this polarizer filter to kind of remove the glare on the pieces that comes from the lights and so on. Alright, so before the polarizing filter and with the polarizing filter. So a pretty big difference. Don't know if I'm gonna go with the smoke either, but we're gonna try at least and see how it looks. Alright, that definitely looked really cool, so I'm gonna go with that. Alright, just tried so many shots now because you're always running short on that when you go to edit, and I might actually be using some of that for other projects as well. Right now I'm gonna do some kind of moving shot, dragging the camera. This is my old camera, by the way, but dragging the camera on a cloth like this to get it kind of smooth. Very good tip to use this. Now we are done with this. Alright, and now we're just gonna shoot the rolling shots, and for that I basically just hold the camera, drag it along the table edge, and then have the car kind of roll together with the camera. What do I use for backgrounds? I like to keep it relatively simple. Either I just use the wall with this, I don't know what you call this, but yeah. I also like to use infinity backgrounds, which I cover in the photography video. And when you have really small Lego models, you can have pretty tiny backgrounds. So recently what I've been doing is that I actually printed on a printer backgrounds. Just googling different backgrounds like concrete backgrounds and stuff like that. By the way, use matte paper to prevent reflections. Alright, so now I'm done shooting the car, and now we're gonna do the building scenes. And for that we're gonna again use some ambient light, but this time we're not gonna have the red, we're just gonna have 2 of these white ambient lights. Then I'm just gonna film a few different shots building up kind of the model and with some different focal lengths and all of that, kind of dragging out drawers, like dropping pieces, and try to kind of match that. Hopefully I will be able to match that rhythmically a bit to the keyboard tapping and coding, like sound effects and stuff like that. At least that's what I'm hoping to achieve with these things. So yeah. By the way, I always also try to keep a relatively high f-stop just to keep as much as possible in focus, because when you get really close with the Lego models, focus distance becomes shorter, so relatively high f-stop. Now I'm finally done with all the shots, so moving on to the editing. Alright, don't know how much of the actual editing I will be covering, because I feel like this video already is pretty long and there's just so many other people that are much better than me at explaining this. But I can maybe cover the basics a bit. Of course, already started with the intro here a bit, with the stock footage that I've dragged down the opacity on a bit here so the hacker kind of comes through. But I'm just gonna add in all clips to the timeline as I marked out, and then we will go from there. And where can you find good car sounds? That's extremely hard, to be honest. Again, I use Epidemic Sound for all the car sounds basically. There's never a car sound that fits the car. Yes, it's probably someone that's recorded a specific car sound and you can purchase a car sound pack, but that's unfortunately most of the time pretty expensive. So either take what you find in these music sound effect library services, free or non-free. And another tip, if you want to take it to the next level, is to kind of mix the sound with EQ and pitch and stuff like that to kind of make it sound more like the actual car you want to match the sound to in reality. So yeah. Alright, so now added in all the clips and also removed some clips because I just felt like it became a bit too rapid cuts here and there, especially at the end where I'm still not super happy. Actually, it is a bit rapid, but in the end I hope the sound effects will help sell the story a bit more. Then also added a bit of a dramatic color grading with kind of a green tint to it. And again, if this interests you and you want to learn more, please just Google tutorials or check here on YouTube, because there's just hundreds of tutorials on color grading, editing, all these stuff. Also added some cinematic bars here that I've downloaded before, and one shot I was really happy with was this front shot of the Audi, where for these flares I just used some anamorphic lens flares that I dragged down the saturation for a bit and changed the blend mode to screen, if that makes any sense. And also these are digital zoom-ins and stuff like that. But now I'm gonna move on to what I think is the most fun part, which is the sound design. So gonna go over to Epidemic Sound and yeah, download some sounds that I feel fit for this particular sequence. So yeah, unfortunately lost the footage where I explained the sound design a bit more, but here's the timeline anyway with the added sound effects, and here's now also the video with only the sound effects, not the music.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.
Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you liked today's video. Hope it wasn't too in-depth or complex or over-ambitious. I was a bit worried about it. But yeah, I will say it again. Just have fun with this. And I really hope this inspired a few of you at least. Even though this is a Lego channel, that's why most of you are here. But if you like these type of videos, I would be up for doing more a beginner-friendly one with using more basic gear like a phone and window light. Anyway, that's all it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye for now.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test. Repeat, this is not a test.